This is Straight to the Video podcast, and I got a good episode out this week. And there's a lot of news happening. There's a mandatory out of nowhere that seems like, I'm hearing a lot of, strange movement from the bout system, right? And you got a mandatory now. You got Porter versus Terence Crawford, and that was mandatory. So that means that they have a certain amount of days to make this fight happen. Or it goes to a purse bid, and that means every promotion can bid for it. And if, Terence Crawford doesn't want the fight, doesn't, feel like it's the right fight for him or the right opportunity or whatever, he drops the belt. And then Porter would fight someone else for it. And Terence Crawford not going to do that, I don't believe, because there's no one else to fight, and he's been trying to get a PBC guy to fight him for a while. So this is a perfect opportunity. It seems like maybe the Belts are trying to make a name for himself, or maybe it's a power play now for the Belts to see like which one of them is going to force the better fights, or which one is going to be taken more seriously. But I do believe that there's a depreciation of the Belts going on, even though we just had an undisputed fight with Castano and Jermell Charlo. But even going into the rematch, if the IBF or IBI, I don't know what the hell, whatever one it is, wants Jermell to do a mandatory, which I doubt he will. He'll probably just go to the Castano fight, especially with the hype on it and the momentum it has now going into the rematch. It just looks like people don't care about the belt as much. It seems like the fans are finally starting to catch on, which I've been saying forever. It's like, why do we care about the belts? Now the fans are starting to catch on. Maybe the belts are catching a whiff of it, and they're just like, okay, one of us is gonna. The reason I did that was a fly. Okay, I didn't just do this weird hand motion for no reason. And I felt like I had to point that out because someone's gonna be like, "Why the hell did he do that?" You know what I mean? And that's a weird motion just to do out of nowhere. But back to the point is, the belt systems are like, they're probably wondering like, well, they're probably seeing it. They're probably seeing the sign. They're probably like, hey, we gotta start making moves here, right? There's gonna be one belt that everyone respects. And what's that going to be? And, we want to be a part of the big fights. And big fights will be made no matter what, whether with us or without us. And definitely, they're probably in with some promotion, right? And probably maybe the PBC. Who knows they're going to get Terence Crawford? Right? Who knows they're going to get Terence Crawford? And they're, trying to make them get the wheels in motion now, fight one of their fighters. To build that kind of momentum. Also, honestly, too, because say Terence Crawford, right? PBC's gonna go after Terence Crawford. Right now, they can get a fight with him before getting a deal with him, with one of their best guys. And if he beats him, then okay, you were gonna have to pay him that money anyways, right? You were gonna have to pay him a good contract anyways. But if he loses, right, now you get to decide, like, do I want to sign him? And for sure, the price went down. The asking price went down, right? And if he loses, then you kind of eliminated him as competition for Earl Spence. Kind of eliminated him as competition at 147 since Spence already beat Porter. Since Thurman already beat Porter. You know what I mean? So I somehow think PBC's involved with getting this fight as a mandatory. I think the Top Rank's probably not mad at it because they didn't have no opponents for Terence Crawford. And it's a risky fight for Crawford right before, signing with your next promoter. It is. But I think Terence Crawford is a pretty confident guy. Believes in himself. I don't think he's worried about it, but it is. It's an interesting part of his, where he's at in his business right now. What other news we got? De La Hoya versus Vitor. I talked about this on the Ezra podcast on Spotify and Apple. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, of course De La Hoya's thing's going to end with him getting beat down by an MMA fighter. Of course. Of course it is. You know what I mean? Like, he lives a hectic life. It's unhealthy. Look at the way he's talking. Look how ridiculous he sounds. Look at all the things that he's saying. He's saying he wants to fight Canelo Alvarez. He wants to fight, Canelo Alvarez. He wants to fight Floyd Mayweather. It's just, it's the ramblings. The signs are all there for how this is going to play out. And I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to be the one that's fooled here. I'm not going to be the boxing fan like, I can't believe that he got beat by Vitor Belfort. He's going to lose to Vitor Belfort. Vitor Belfort's big. He's a big man. I think he has more in his tank left than De La Hoya does. And I doubt, I don't know, but You think the drug testing is gonna be that stringent on this fight? With De La Hoya in it, you think the drug testing is gonna be super stringent? I don't think so. I think that could favor Vitor Belfort in that situation, honestly. He's gonna lose that damn fight. There's no doubt in my mind he's gonna lose that fight. And we're gonna look at it and be like, yeah, like he looks old in there. His legs look thin. I looked at him when he was like doing the shadow boxing or moving his head with the bag. His legs they looked weak. They really did. They looked weak and they looked old. And I'm a big De La Hoya fan. I was. When I grew up, I was a big De La Hoya fan. I kind of don't like him. You know, the more he talks, the less I like him. But it's just madness what he's talking about, right? Like he's going to fight Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez will put him in a box in a round. What are we talking about? And the weird thing is the De La Hoya has Golden Boy Promotions. It's doing like well. It's not doing as good as it could be, right? Like it's having a hard time putting cards together consistently at the rate that, you know, PBC is putting cards together, or consistent as the rates like Matchroom is, or even Top Rank. You know, it's only put 4 cards together this year, but each one of them has been really good, really deep cards, really well put together, well thought out. Now I don't know who's running Golden Boy, right? Because I know it's not De La Hoya, but whoever's running it, even if it is De La Hoya, I don't know. They're smart, very smart. They know the business. They just need to get backed like in the right direction by the right network to put the money in, for them to sign the fighters, put the fights together, because they know what they're doing. Someone could probably sneak a promotion, a network, or you know whoever is gonna sneak and get Golden Boy, right? And they're gonna get decent cards, decent fighters, and you know there's a chance for real star power with them. Ryan Garcia, Virgil Ortiz, like there's a chance for real star power. Even Gilberto Ramirez is interesting, right? Even he's interesting. And one of these networks, so I pick them up for cheap. And they're going to get some decent cards on the thing. I'm curious to see how the network battles is really interesting in fighting. And it kind of gets annoying. Like I get annoyed with it on Twitter because there's definitely like guys that have like, you know, they favor one side than the other. And I don't know I favor one side. I think I like DAZN because DAZN's really affordable and it's 100% dedicated to boxing. So I don't know why people don't like that, but some people are real negative about it. I definitely don't want to be paying $70 a month for pay-per-view. I would like to get away from that model unless we absolutely have to. It's like a mega fight and that's the only way to pay for it. Then I understand. But I'm curious where Golden Boy goes from here. I'm curious that, you know, people are saying that the Fox and PBC deal is coming to an end. And I haven't seen anything like that because it seems like Fox is willing to throw in a lot of money on, you know, Canelo Alvarez doing a pay-per-view, on Earl Spence and Pacquiao. So they're definitely not out of it yet. But it's definitely interesting watching these battles and watching these guys compete for fights and fighters. Like if Spence and Crawford go to the purse bid, like that's going to be the most interesting purse bid. If Teofimo and them got paid out, like I can only imagine like what DAZN will be looking to pay, Matchroom will be looking to pay. Triller, are they still going to be like that's the one they should have waited for. Not Teofimo. They should have waited for Terence Crawford versus Porter. So MMA news? Is there MMA news? Floyd Mayweather called Makhachev the Floyd Mayweather Kobe Bryant. Right? So he was at that level. A little bit hyperbole, I would say. Probably Khabib would fit that more, but he's really good. I think he's at that point right now where he's gonna fight better fighters, and it's weird because now like it's like he's either really great in people's eyes or now he's like you know. I think everybody's pretty high on him, but I heard like Luke Thomas talk about him. And the stuff he pointed out, like, it's accurate, right? Like, on the ground, he's not. I think if you're comparing him to Khabib, you're going to be like, you're going to know, you know, the differences you notice might make you feel negative on him, but I don't really think he's like a Khabib-like fighter. He's definitely, like, better in the stand-up. He's more technical, defensively more sound in the stand-up. He can grapple, no doubt about that. He's not as devastating on top of you. Like, he's not, ground and pound isn't, like, lights out, right? It's not like, oh, he's putting a beating on him, but his control and everything like that is pretty damn good. I think when you compare him to Khabib, or like a lot of things happen, like a lot of guys, like Shakur Stevenson, right? Like you compare him to Floyd Mayweather, and it's like, well, that's the best defensive fighter of all time. one of the best counter punchers of all time. It's like, you know, if I'm trying to put him in exactly in a box of Floyd Mayweather is, it's only going to be negative because there's only one Floyd Mayweather. But if I just allow him to beat Shakur and grade him on that scale, I'm like, hey, he looks pretty damn good. You know what I mean? And that's why I feel like Makhachev. It's like, why is he in this Khabib box? What other MMA news we got? Conor, a lot of excuses. What about his trainer saying that, like, you know, they were a round away from finishing it? What is he gonna say? Maybe he truly believes it. I think that I think a lot of the MMA trainers get a lot of credit really quick when they have a guy, and then they, you know, they have a way of talking. You know, it makes them sound like they're really wise, and I think people like really eat that stuff up. But now I see fans like kind of just like over it in a way. And I like Kavanaugh. Like when he talks, I think he's very interesting. But sometimes I feel like we make these guys like they're too wise, like they're wiser than all things. And I think that comes from like, well, first of all, like martial arts is kind of like that. You hear like Bruce Lee talk, you know what I mean, like sensei and all that. Like they're supposed to be more than just like your trainers are supposed to be like, you know, bring wisdom, bring like advice, those type of things. And I think those guys take that role up and they talk like it. And I think Kavanaugh's one of those guys. I think I don't know. I've just heard guys, MMA trainers, talk on fights, especially like when an MMA fighter goes to boxing, and they say things that like are interesting, but I don't think are correct. I think that, you know, they're not challenged on these things, and when they're wrong, like no one really says like, well, what the hell was that guy talking about? And I think that people are doing that now, at least in their own sport, right? Like Kavanaugh saying that Conor was, you know, looking good and on pace to finish him in the second round. He wasn't on pace to finish him. Now, was he out of the fight? That's debatable, right? We don't really know. I say it looked like he was definitely turning in the wrong. He was like getting sold up. That's what it looked like to me. But I can't say like, I don't know for a fact. You know what I mean? But me watching it, it looked like it was definitely going in Poirier's direction. And I'm not going to fault you for, you know, sticking up for your fight or whatever. But as a trainer and like, as, you know, people like respect your opinion or, you know, think you're so knowledgeable, that's a little bit of a blow. Maybe I just wouldn't have said anything. I would have said like, I don't know how that was going to play out. You know what I mean? I wish we wouldn't have got hurt. We didn't feel like we were out of it. We felt like we were still in the fight. But I wouldn't know if I would have said like, oh, it looked like we're about to finish it. Because it just seems like you're lying at that point. It's kind of just losing credibility. But this is like common. This is common like MMA. Like the trainers, I don't know. What's his name? GSP's trainer, Faraz Sahabi. Like he says a lot of wild stuff. He says a lot of wild stuff, and I don't really think anyone like ever like, you know, goes back after he says it, and then after something happens, and be like, "What the hell were you talking about?" The Floyd like Conor thing was like the one where it was like people were just saying a lot of stuff, and then you had guys like what's his name? He like breaks down fights. I don't remember his name right now. Something, I think it's something Black or something like that. And you know, he talks like in a similar way, right? Like it's like everything is just like if you're reading from like some kind of philosophy book, right? Like if he's saying everything is just so wise and, you know, it's like you got to think outside the box, and it's like, yeah, I know, like people have been doing this for a lot of years. Every time there's a lot of money in something, people have thought every way, inside, outside, every way around the box. And boxing, there's a lot of money to be made. So no one is just giving that up because, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people involved in boxing. A lot of people want to make money. They don't care how you win. They just want to make the money. Okay. Mayorga was a thing. No one was telling Mayorga, hey, you can't fight this way. Right. No, they were like, if this is effective, then do it. Go fight El Hoya. Go fight Trinidad. And these guys were just talking like if, you know, like if boxing been around this long and no one had really thought of this. And I think that, you know, like Dillashaw coming back this week, and like he had his own style, right? And he was doing his own thing with these feints and these, you know, jittery movement and everything like that. And I just really feel like the game's just really surpassed that. Like that was one time a thing, and it's just not there anymore. And you know, when they were calling his trainer a genius and the stuff he was doing, and now it's like it just looks primitive, and it looks like wasted space and time and wasted movement. MMA is so new to like whenever you're gonna go through a bunch of fads of things. Right now it's like the calf kick, right? The calf kick. That's another thing is like with the calf kick that's interesting, right? It's so effective. But then like some guys, it's not like we're watching every fight and like the calf kick is, it's the fight's decided on a calf kick. Also, I've seen guys get calf kick and it looks like their leg's done, and then they come back the next round, they push through, and they'll win the fight. But I do know that it's like people they have leg kicks, they are focusing on it, but I do see an up in broken legs, right? We see it, and now MMA has not had deaths or anything, but will they have something boxing didn't have? Would it be like the first person to lose a leg because of a bad break? Like if you look at Alex Smith and how bad his break was, and all the surgeries he had to go through and everything like that. These breaks are really bad. Like there's these things can go south, and I wonder because the increased amount of effectiveness, right, is going to lead to an increased amounts of injuries for the guy defending it, but especially the guy kicking it because he's kicking full force as someone that's putting their leg, out to defend it, putting it as stiff as possible. So it's like you're kicking around a pole. You're gonna have a lot of breaks. I wonder if like that's gonna be an issue. If like the bone breaking through the skin, and just like Alex Smith, to get an infection and everything like that, and he almost loses his leg. Like, is MMA gonna have that? Is that gonna be an issue? Is that gonna be something that's gonna have to be looked at? Of like, is this too much? Should we not be allowing this because it's too dangerous? But like I said, the sports go through fads like that, and especially because MMA is new, everybody's kind of like figuring out still what works, and there's gonna be. I heard like Joe Rogan talking about like how MMA of all sports, especially like over boxing, it's evolving. And yeah, of course, because it's new. It's brand new. So of course it's going to evolve more than boxing is, because boxing's been around for hundreds of years. And I'm sure the calf kick it's effective. I'm not saying it's going away, but it might be a little bit of a fad right now, right? Like it might be something that people learn how to defend. Just like, when jiu-jitsu came around, right? Like jiu-jitsu, when it first came out, was unstoppable. But it was mostly because people were just unfamiliar with it. They'd never seen it before. Didn't even know what to do with it. Never had worked against it. And then you came a guy that was like a wrestler. And then a guy that can sprawl and brawl, right? A guy that had hands but could, stuff your takedowns. And then after that, it was, then like a karate stance came in. There was a few fads, I'm not saying like wrestling's not, wrestling's still very effective, but maybe not as effective as it once was. It's definitely not like a guy that's going to come in and just be like a wrestler and not know how to throw hands or anything like that and dominate. I really don't believe that. Like, I think you have to know submission. You have to kind of, I feel like before like a wrestler could just come in and be pretty damn effective. I don't know if that's the case anymore. Everyone kind of is working everything. I think definitely now it favors like you can defend the ground, but you kind of have to be good in stand-up, right? Because a lot of fights just end up being stand-up because the ground kind of gets washed with like two guys, right? If you have two wrestlers, then it's like who's the best, who's a better stand-up guy? And I think calf kicks are just like probably gonna go along with that, like a certain portion of it right now where it's like super effective, but then guys get used to it, they start training every day, and they start defending it. Just like how we went through leg locks, right? Leg locks were a huge thing. Now you don't, leg locks aren't. Hasn't been like a Palmares who was just like, if he got down on the ground, he grabbed your leg, it was over. I think Ryan Hall was supposed to be that, and look at what happened to him, right? Like it's just everybody has way more knowledge. They're like nothing's a surprise to anyone anymore. They just know what's good. They know what's coming. They know what's happening. They have a game plan. Everybody's coming with a game plan. They've seen your game. Like, there's a lot less unfamiliarities. And I think the calf kick will be a fad, but I'm curious about the injury rate of it. Like, I'm curious of what the end result of that is. I didn't even get to the calf kick. I don't even know. What about Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva? Logan Paul. Logan Paul's the favorite right now. They released the odds. I think I don't think Vegas is caught up with betting MMA. I don't think it's been, and especially not caught up with betting these YouTube boxers. And I don't know if I blame him because not a lot to watch. Like, what are you watching really? Like, what are you judging Logan Paul off? He survived against Floyd and lost to KSI. There's not a lot to judge him off. And I think that I just don't think they know what to do with it. And I think they're thinking, well, he did land something against Floyd and he didn't get knocked out. And I think they know that Chavez is extremely washed. So, of course, Anderson beat him. I don't think it was that impressive to them because they just know that Chavez is really, a shell of himself or what he once was. But Anderson Silva was a big man. Like, he's not small. In the one thing about the Pauls usually use is they have a big size advantage on their guys. Logan's not going to have that here. And Logan's for sure the less talented of the brothers in boxing. And he really hasn't shown anything offensively that says he has anything to offer. Nothing in the Floyd fight. Wildness, but nothing in the Floyd fight that was effective. Nothing in the KSI fight. I don't understand how people can look at this and think like, yeah, he's going to have more skill than Anderson. He doesn't have the size advantage. He has no advantages in this fight. He's giving him every advantage he has had, right? Experience, all those things. Anderson's going to be comfortable in there. He's not going to panic. The thing we have to rely on is youth, but it's like youth to what? Youth to, if you get just a 20-year-old guy out the street and then you put him against like a 45-year-old fighter, the 40-year-old fighter is going to win, even though the guy has youth. I don't get those odds. I don't get what advantages that they feel like Logan has, and I also just don't get the fight for Logan. I think that the De La Hoya fight seemed to make more sense. Like, I don't know why couldn't that fight be made? Is it because he's with Triller and they don't want to go with Triller anymore? Maybe, but that seems like a way bigger fight. And it's still keep your advantages of your size. You get the guy a little bit bigger, but he's also older. It's a way bigger payday. It has to be. If you've got De La Hoya and Logan Paul. So Logan Paul, less interesting of the brothers for sure. Definitely, less interesting of a fighter to watch because I just don't feel like he has much ability. And he basically stood with Floyd just because of his size. It's just he was just big enough to where the shots weren't enough to knock him out. That's all that happened. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't nothing that he brought to the table. But Anderson's an underdog, and I feel like a lot of people are going to be throwing money at Anderson. They're probably doing it right now at this moment. Because those odds are going to change. They're going to shift. And I think right now, if you get Anderson, what is he, like plus 190, I think? Yeah. So double your money. This has been Straight to the Video podcast.